Since Repair Clinic encourages you to perform this procedure safely, a warning icon will appear when you should use caution. Many ice machine repairs will require some disassembly of the appliance. Before you attempt this, be sure to unplug the power cord or shut off the power supply to the appliance. To reach components behind the rear access panels or under the top panel, you will need to move the appliance away from the wall or cabinet. To uninstall the lower rear access panel, use a 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread all of the screws, securing the panel to the frame. Set the panel aside to reach compressor components and the remote drain pump. To replace the compressor overload, use a flathead screwdriver to help detach the overload and start relay cover. Detach the start relay. Disconnect the wire from the overload and detach the old component. Install the new compressor overload by aligning it on the upper compressor motor pin. Connect the wire to the terminal. Realign the start relay on the lower compressor motor pins. Reposition the cover and snap it into place. With the repair completed, reinstall the access panel. To access components like the cutting grid or circulation pump, unthread the screws securing the access cover to the control panel. You can use a putty knife to help pry the cover free. Disconnect the ice bin thermistor wire connector, along with the cutting grid wire connector. Next, unthread the 2 mounting screws securing the grid to the bracket and liner. With the screws unthreaded, you can slide out the grid. If you need to replace the circulation pump, first unthread the drain cap to drain any water that may be in the reservoir tray. Detach the reservoir fill tube from the circulation pump cover, then pull the cover forward to remove. Next, unthread the screw to release the reservoir assembly. Detach the distribution tube from the circulation pump. Depress the tab to disconnect the circulation pump wire connector. Now cut the zip tie securing the circulation pump mounting tray to the reservoir distribution tray. Depress the tabs to release the mounting tray. Disconnect the reservoir drain pump wire connector and use needle nose pliers to help detach the connector from the tray. You can now fully uninstall the old circulation pump from the mounting tray. Install the new circulation pump by snapping it into place in the mounting tray. Snap the drain pump wire connector into place in the tray and reconnect the wire connector. Reposition the circulation pump mounting tray on the reservoir distribution tray and snap it into place. Use a new zip tie to secure. Connect the circulation pump wire connector. Attach the distribution tube to the pump. Reposition the reservoir assembly and replace the mounting screw. Reposition the circulation pump cover and secure the fill tube. Thread on the drain cap. Before you reinstall the cutting grid, make sure the right side spacer is intact. Now align the grid on the bracket and liner, then thread the mounting screws. To reach components under the top panel, use a T20 Torx bit to unthread the front screws, securing the panel. Use the 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread the rear screws. Lift up the top panel and have an assistant support it. If you need to replace a component inside the control housing, unthread all of the screws to release the control housing from the top panel. Unthread the screws securing the grounding wire so you can set the top panel aside. To replace the display control, depress the tabs to release the old control from the housing, then disconnect the wire connector. Install the new display control by connecting the wire connector, then align and snap the component into the control housing. Reinstall the top panel by first threading the screw to secure the control housing grounding wire to the panel. Realign the housing on the panel and thread all of the screws. Reposition the top panel. Reconnect the cutting grid wire connector and the thermistor wire connector. Rethread the front and rear screws to secure the top panel. Reinstall the access cover by aligning the bottom edge first so the ice scoop housing rests on the top of the cover. Secure it with the screws. To access components like the water inlet valve or to remove the door, unthread the 2 mounting screws, securing the lower outer access panel. With the screws unthreaded, set the outer panel and inserts aside. Next, unthread the screws to release the inner access panel from the frame. To uninstall the door, use pliers to help detach both door hinge springs from the hinges. Have the assistant help support the door as you use a 5/16" socket or nut driver to unthread the mounting screws securing both of the hinges to the frame. If you need to replace a door hinge, set the door down on a towel or blanket. Starting at a corner, pull the door gasket out of the channel on the liner. Use the 1/4-inch socket or nut driver to unthread all of the screws, securing the inner liner to the door assembly. Pull the liner free. Next, unthread the bottom screws securing the door assembly to the outer panel. Lift the bottom of the door assembly up and slide it down to separate it from the outer panel. Detach the bottom trim. You can now use pliers to detach the hinge pin clip securing the hinge you're replacing. Slide out the pin and remove the old hinge. Install the new door hinge by aligning it on the side rail as you insert the hinge pin. Snap on the pin clip to secure. To reassemble the door, first make sure both door hinge rail assemblies are aligned. Reposition the bottom trim. Make sure the upper trim is in place, then realign the magnet end cap on the top of the door assembly. Confirm the inserts are in place in the outer door panel. Holding the door assembly together, reposition it in the panel. Rethread the screws on the bottom. Realign the inner liner. Rethread the screws. Starting on a corner, reinsert the door gasket into the channel on the liner. Reinstall the door by aligning the hinges on the ice machine frame, then thread the mounting screws. Close the door and reattach the hinge springs to the hinges. Confirm the door opens and closes properly. Continue the reassembly by repositioning the inner access panel and replacing the screws to secure it to the frame. Before you reinstall the outer panel, make sure the inserts are positioned. Then align the panel and rethread the mounting screws. With the reassembly complete, move the appliance back into place. Plug the power cord back in or restore the power supply, and your ice machine should be ready for use.